Alrighty, everybody. I have a fantastic interview that I had just finished earlier this morning with a legendary chiropractor, in my opinion. Very humble man. Super exciting experience. He actually talks about a very special technique that he's been doing for over a decade now that has helped change and transform the lives of many people. But here's the thing. This technique is not just for chiropractors. This technique can be used for just about anybody and could potentially save you thousands of dollars every year. So if you are interested in that, please stay tuned, watch the whole thing. This is going to be fantastic. So without further ado, will allow you to watch this wonderful interview that I had an opportunity to participate in. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the other video. All right. And just so you are aware again that this is all just for the sake of social media, YouTube, just so people can have some more content as to basically educational purposes only. All right.
Very good.
All righty. So we are here with Dr. Kevin Ross. He is a chiropractor who graduated from the Palmer College of Chiropractic back in 1991. He started his private practice in January of 92, and it is currently the end of September 2022. So Dr. Ross, you've been in practice pretty much since 1992 at your own office, right?
Yep, 30 years, same parking lot, 30 years, 5 different offices in the same parking lot.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I know you because you've worked on my family and you've worked on some of my friends, and I send clients to you if they ever need a chiropractor. One of my very first introductions to you was actually through my ex, Mickey, who used to work for you. And the very first time I met you, you made a huge impression on me because you actually kneeled down to my stepdaughter's height and started talking to her face to face about stuff. And that really connected with me because I've never seen any chiropractor ever who actually would talk to a very small child and get down to their level and actually connect with them on the heart-to-heart level. So that was one of the first things that when I saw that, I was like, oh, I know this guy. This guy's amazing. Already, I could tell. But with that, like, you've been doing this for 30 years, right? This has been a strong passion of yours. And what kind of got you into chiropractic care?
It's kind of a funny story. I had no intention of being a chiropractor at all, actually. I was going to be the masseuse on the Love Boat. I was going to travel the world, massage beautiful women. It was going to make a great living. My dad had actually been in a fairly serious auto accident, got rear-ended, broke the seat off, and had visited a chiropractor that essentially really changed his life. And he said, so here's the deal, son. Said, you like the human body, you like working with your hands, so why don't you try chiropractic? Like, okay. So I researched the biggest and best and the oldest chiropractic college, turned out to be Palmer College, applied, got accepted, and went, oh crap, I've never been adjusted before. So I actually got my first chiropractic adjustment about a week before I left to go to chiropractic college. So it was definitely not the, oh, I grew up in a chiropractic family, natural health world. It was really from my dad's suggestion of, because he at least knew me well enough to know that I love the human body and working with my hands, and started chiropractic college and never looked back, man. It's been absolutely the love of my life and a passion ever since.
Oh, I love that. So let me ask you real quick, a lot of people already know about chiropractic care, but in a nutshell, what can you tell me that is maybe some of the most beneficial things that people aren't aware of that chiropractic care can actually do as a healing modality?
I think a lot of people have been taught, in our profession, I think has perpetuated it, that chiropractors are headache and low back pain. That is really what has been accepted in the insurance world. That is what a lot of my profession caters to, is what the insurance would cover, and a lot of that is headache and low back pain. But really the core of chiropractic that never is what that was. The first chiropractic patient was actually a deaf janitor. His hearing came back, and D.D. Palmer thought he discovered the cure for hearing, and come one, come all. Back in the 1800s, come on, come all, have your hearing restored. And not everyone did, but a lot of other health things changed. And so really the core of chiropractic is the idea of thoughts, traumas, and toxins that can interfere with the ability of the body to heal itself. You and I both know the body has that innate intelligence, that inborn wisdom of the body to heal itself.
Mhm.
And really at the core of chiropractic, it's adjusting people to free up the ability of the innate intelligence to heal itself. And so I don't limit it to what most people would consider, a chiropractic patient. Oh, my neck hurts or my back hurts. It's even in, working with pediatric and pregnancy care, people's like, you work on babies? Yeah, I work on babies, because if there's something that's wrong with a baby, there's any interference to their normal function, I want them to work better. And so we've worked with a variety of people with a variety of health conditions. And it's not just, I guess the end of the statement is, it's not just headache and low back pain. It's really a life modality to help people live a healthier life with less interference.
That's wonderful. You just reminded me of a story that Mickey had told me about Quinn when she was an infant. She was hard to nurse because it was very painful for her. And she had a subluxation in her neck that you actually helped. And as soon as you helped with that, Quinn was able to nurse just fine, and it was no longer painful for Mickey.
Oh man, that is one of my most enjoyable things, working with babies that have nursing issues, to see a mom go from something that they want to provide that life and that health for the child through breastfeeding, and they're miserable. I mean, cracked nipples and bleeding, and they're in tears and trying to bring life to a child, and at the same time and just in tears, and to be able to have something as simple as an adjustment that, I mean, it's like pressure that, like you can push in your eyeballs, all the more pressure it is to adjust a baby, and to see those transformations.
Oh, that's
It's
amazing.
incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I've got so many different stories just from the experiences of just having you been in my family's life. And it's funny because I've never even personally had the adjustment from you, but I know that because I've had adjustments from other chiropractors, I always, think to myself, I'm getting the same adjustment from every chiropractor, no matter what chiropractor I'm seeing. But anytime I've seen you work, you're always doing something different with the person, because you're addressing their needs and you're focusing on them as a person versus just doing the same cookie cutter adjustments that everybody else does. Now, everybody, can getting benefit from those adjustments, but you get a lot more specific with it. And you use a very valuable technique with that we'll talk about in just a moment. But tell me what made you so passionate about working with those children beyond just what you've mentioned now?
It's interesting because when I graduated October of 91, November of 91, they had their very first, the International Chiropractic Association, the ICA, had their very first international pediatric conference. The effects of chiropractic with pediatric world. They had just published a very profound, very thick book on pediatric care. And so I thought, man, I want to go to this. And so I went to that very first pediatric conference a month after I graduated chiropractic college. And I sat there, and I'm telling you, it's as clear as day. God went, that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life, young man. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, and everything in me went, you're going to work with kids and babies. And it has been the joy and the love of my life, especially being a man in that world. I have been very blessed in the Arizona health community and the natural health community to been welcomed into that, because a lot of times it's a very female dominated world. And as a man, to be able to work with pediatric and pregnancy care, it's been a gift, and definitely a calling on my life to do that from really before I even had my formal license. So a lot of love, a lot of history.
That's amazing. I love that. And one of the techniques that you use is called the Koren Specific Technique, or known as KST, right?
Yep, that is accurate.
And How has this added value to your chiropractic care services?
Oh man. So I did chiropractic care for 18 years before I was introduced to KST. Very good chiropractor, at times high volume. We'd seen as many as 100 patients in a day. Very good success, got referrals from other chiropractors. Very, very good at what I do. And kept getting these brochures from Ted Koren about this technique. I'm like, that's interesting, but I don't do that. It's interesting, I don't do that. I kept throwing them away. And finally, just at that point, it's kind of a funny story, but it sat at my desk, and it is clear in my brain as the audible voice of God said, take the work. I went, I guess I'm going to go learn something new. And once I took the seminars and learned, I paid lip service to innate intelligence. I knew about it.
Mhm.
It wasn't part of the work that I did. KST has really engaged me to the understanding your body knows exactly what your body needs. My job is to learn from what your body knows and then help your body do what it's trying to do. And the KST process is this beautiful stepwise process that's called priorities that allow us to figure out that what we talked about earlier, the physical, the chemical, the emotional components of the human body, get rid of that interference. And going from a periodic success story, and those are really cool. At this point, I have a stack of, I have, you can see my desk is nice and organized, but I have a stack of sticky notes of success stories every day of amazing things that happen with the human body. I know you're familiar with that the same experience with your own work, but it's just made the chiropractic process of what I do better, faster, getting to things where instead of 3 times a week for the next 6 weeks and let's see if something happens, which is very common in our profession, having people's bodies respond, what I found much faster to what needs to be done. It's been life-changing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, even just with my own experiences of like that innate intelligence that the human body has is very profound. And when I studied more of like the psychology, the hypnotherapy, the neurolinguistic programming stuff that I've learned, all they talk about in psychology is basically that like your body knows everything that's going on with it at like almost any given point in time, right? That's pretty much how you feel too, right?
Absolutely. The phrase I teach the kids that come into my office now is, or I ask them the question, what is your body talking about that I need to know about? Because I
Right.
want kids to know that body is telling them stuff. It's talking to them. They know what's going on. And as a professional, I don't tell them what I know. I find out what their body is talking about. And the other phrase I use a lot in the KST world has forced me to get into this is, you're the expert on you. I'm not the expert on you. And it's parking my educated wisdom, and again, parking it to the idea of the innate intelligence of the human body. It's been,
But yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. Like the whole body knows everything. And I always say like, I'm an investigator, right? Like I'm checking pulses, I'm doing assessments because your body's got information that I don't know about. And even though like I have training, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll put aside my training and my knowledge and my expertise to understand what the body's actually telling me. Because even though I've got all this wonderful training, sometimes what happens is that training can interfere with what's actually going on. Because I might think I know what's going on, but what's actually going on, the body will tell me that, and I might be pleasantly surprised. So there's been experiences that I've personally had where based on like my indoctrination behind my training, I would normally think, oh, this is most likely the situation or the problem. And then I go, oh, wait a second. No, this has nothing to do with that. This is an entirely separate issue. For an example, and it actually does make sense sometimes with my training too, just in ways that I never imagined. I had a client back a couple of years ago. She was wearing a mask all the time for COVID purposes, and she developed a numbness in her thumb.
oh wow, yeah.
And I started, I checked her thumb. I couldn't really feel much going on with her thumb. I checked the meridian that flows through the thumb, and I could get the numbness to go away, but almost the very next day it would come back. And then one day I decided to put aside what, my normal knowledge would have thought and I ran some assessments and so did some tests and came up to a pressure point right by her eye and pressed on the pressure point. And the second I touched this pressure point, she felt it shoot down through her arm to her thumb, and the numbness was completely gone and taken care of. And what I realized is it was the pressure of the mask that was causing the pressure on her head. And just such the right way, you know, 1 in a million, 1 in a billion chance that whatever happened with her, it caused her thumb to start going numb. Will I ever see that again? Probably not.
Nope.
But it goes against most any commonsensical training that I've had medically. You know, we'd say, look at the neck, look at the look at the arm, look at the, you know, elbow, look at, you know, where the problems are, right? Where the nerves would come from. Nothing I've ever read or even heard about would say, come up to the sinuses point right here. But again, knowing what I know in Chinese medicine, I was able to reflect it back into what I knew. And it goes, well, that in a way does make sense thinking about it. But okay, who would have actually pieced those two, you know, that information together? So doing like the KST, it's not a therapy or a modality that only chiropractors that can use. Other practitioners can use it too, correct?
That's correct. And the I would say the lay person as well, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. But yeah, one of the things that is a joy of my life as well is Ted Koren, who created Koren Specific Technique, or KST. Years ago, I've been doing that about 12 years, about 11 years ago, asked me if I would be one of his mentors during the seminars. And then a couple of years after that, I have been blessed to be able to start teaching at the KST seminars as well. And I've been teaching more of those KST seminars. And so in those classes, we've had massage therapists, physical therapists, acupuncturists, medical doctors, dentists, utilizing this KST process of the occipital drop, which is like a muscle strength testing. There's a few different binary texts. I'm sure, again, some of the listeners will be familiar with muscle strength testing. If someone's been to a chiropractor that does activator, they do leg length checks. There's same sort of thing, but it's just the occipital drop is a much more repeatable, teachable form of that communication device. And yeah, so we've been able to teach a variety of folks, and then how they apply that information is based on, knowledge base, what your scope of practice is for your particular modality, what you're taught in, what your state will allow you to do, those types of things. But in my office, one of the things my passion is the checking process, to be able to check yourself is a beautiful part of the KST process. I actually checked and worked on myself. And I started a home care class that allows me to teach the general public how to check themselves and give them a list of things. There's no laws against checking yourself and working on yourself. And so we provide this tool and a little bit of a toolbox for just the general public to be able to check things like vitamin supplements, right? As you know, that they can be very beneficial. People can utilize them well, but a lot of people, they're coming in, they're holding a handful of stuff that they take every single day. How long have you been taking that? 6 years. Do you need it? I don't know. They said to take it, so I keep taking it. Utilizing checks that feed back to the body to say, is that beneficial today or not? Mm-hmm. So the KST process, the occipital drop, and the checks that we do with called priorities absolutely can be taught and learned by other professionals. Ted Koren has always said that he thinks that KST is probably best used by chiropractors just because of the scope of things that we can address with our licensure, but it doesn't limit at all people coming to the seminars and learning.
That's fantastic, because that's something I've talked about a lot is muscle strength testing, because I'll do that with vitamins and supplements and whatnot too. But I also, for me, it's funny because I'll go into a grocery store and they'll like, here's a free sample of this is going to be good for you. And I'm like, no, actually not today. And they look at me funny, like, how could this not be good for you? Right. I'm like, well, that one's not for me. There might be a different brand of the same sort of thing that could be good for me, but that one in particular is not the one my body needs. Yeah. And so that it saves so much money for people when they know how to do stuff like that. And I think that if you can teach this to the lay person to just average ordinary people who don't know, how to do other, all these modalities for themselves, but you could teach them how to even just do that and identify what kind of supplements they need or what kind of nutrition that they need. That is amazing. There's thousands and thousands of dollars you can save people every single year just on their supplements and vitamins and herbal things, teas, food, whatever, right? Like there's so much that you can teach them from just that alone. So that's a very powerful thing. And it's that, to me, I think everybody should know that technique just so that they could do this.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
I have one patient that took the class. She is saving over $100 a month in her supplements alone. It's incredible. I mean, the price for the cost, for the class. I was listening to you so intently. It's something hit my brain. I was going to tell you, and all of a sudden went, nope. I finished your thought, and it's out of my thought. But I was going to tell you the idea of being able to check. And I'm going to propose something very controversial right now.
Okay.
Someone checking themselves with 3 simple questions, I think, could reduce and/or eliminate obesity on the planet, especially in the United States. 3 questions. You check yourself. You're hungry. Is it beneficial for me to eat right now? Question number 1. If you get a no response, don't eat. I don't care how hungry you are. If your body says it's not beneficial, don't eat. Question number 2. Is this thirst instead of hunger? Because many times that drive of what we feel as hunger is actually thirst, especially desert Southwest where we particularly live. A lot of people low level dehydration. Third question is, will any of these foods cause a problem for me? If there is an affirmative, positive, or a negative response to any one of those things, if people will actually ask the question, have a feedback tool for their own body to recognize what that body response is, and then respond to it and actually listen to it. Because I could check myself. I love Oreos. I literally could eat through a half a package of Oreos. If I ask the question, are those beneficial for me? I guarantee you, physiologically, my body's going to go, nope. But I can override the knowledge that I have and choose to do something anyways. And I think a lot of people, what we do is we live life choosing to ignore information or plain and simply live in ignorance. We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I know, your passion and my passion is to get people out of that ignorance, to know and have tools to live a healthier life.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something in my own personal preference that I often talk about and teach to people is like identifying what good cravings are versus bad cravings.
You said you were talking about cravings. What good and bad cravings? What did you mean by that?
So good and bad cravings, like when we talk about good cravings versus bad cravings, like there's what we, like some people will have like a sweet tooth craving and it just never gets satisfied. Like they eat a little bit of something and then they want a little bit more and then they want a little bit more, right? And they end up usually overdoing it. Where sometimes there's what we call good cravings, and that's more of your instincts or your intuition that just, when you look at something and you're like, oh, that sounds amazing right now. That's like the thing that I need. And so sometimes I'll see people who, and I'll use this as a story as an example of like, if you're in a terrible mood and you just feel like you want to watch the world burn because everything's just going like awful that day. And suddenly you walk through the grocery store and I tell people like, yeah, you come across maybe a slice of cheesecake or a cookie or something like that. And you just immediately go, oh my God, that sounds amazing right now. And if if you eat that, the world's going to be rainbows, butterflies, unicorns, everything's going to be magical all over again. You don't even care how the rest of your day went, right? But if you're in that moment where sometimes you get a little too stuck or rigid in your thought process, where it's like, I've got to stick to my very strict diet. Sometimes you could be missing out on a valuable nutrient that's in that food. And I use cheesecake or cookie, but it could literally be anything else too. It's just that one particular thing, that something in that will create such a physiological shift and change within your body that the benefits outweigh the cons of like the sugar or something like that in that nature. It's not, and I always tell people it's much more of an instinctual thing versus I needed to go to the grocery store and grab myself a cookie. That's not probably going to be the solution. But if you're walking by something, or like if you're at a restaurant and immediately your eyes get hooked on something and you go, ooh, that's the thing I want, right? That you don't even see anything else on the menu. You just know that that's what it is.
Yeah.
I usually guarantee people that if they do any form of muscle testing or anything like that, that they're going to find that, yes, that's in fact exactly what their body wants.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the Koren Specific Technique would take the guesswork out of a lot of things for people. And I think that's a fantastic and very phenomenal thing.
And if I can put a short commercial in there, if anyone is interested in that, the website, KorenSpecificTechnique.com. When they go on that, up on the upper right-hand corner, there's a little tab for seminars. There's only 2 left this year. I will actually be in Florida. That is the 15th and 16th of this month. And then in November, it's November 5th, we'll be in Philadelphia. So those are the last 2 this year, is one in Florida and then one in Philadelphia. The new schedule for the next year hasn't come out yet, but they can monitor at that website. If that sounds like something they're interested in doing, they can absolutely go on and register through that. Rob is the gentleman that oversees all of that, and he will love on them. And it's incredibly worth the value. And I will be personally there teaching at those seminars, and would love on anyone who wants to learn some new information is willing to do that.
That's fantastic. So I've got like a couple more questions then. This might even help entice people to kind of look more into it too. So let me ask you, because I have so much knowledge in my own background on something, right? Like I do massage. You already talked about massage therapists. You've already talked about acupuncturists and whatnot, but I also have a background in hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming. For those who have backgrounds in those types of fields as well, is there a way that this would be able to help benefit those individuals with their practice, helping them to identify maybe what that person could guide them through a hypnosis maybe, or through any other particular techniques that would help them to really physiologically shift what's happening in their body to release those chemicals or to release those imbalances and get the hormones moving in the body like they're supposed to?
After what I have seen and with the professionals I've worked with over the last 10 years at these seminars, I have no doubt in saying absolutely yes. The physiological effect of our emotions on the structural component of what our bodies are doing is astronomical. It's huge. And this is a big passion for mine. As chiropractors, we can work on the mechanics all day long, but if you're not addressing the underlying emotional components that body is processing, why they're processing it, they're not going to heal. They're just not. I tell folks, I am not a psychologist. I don't do psychology work. I don't need a psychology degree, because I'm not trying to solve a psychological component. What I'm looking at is a physiological response to a human body because of an emotion, and how that emotion then affects it. So I'm not trying to determine whether or not they need an antidepressant or something like that in the work that I do. But when you can figure out how physiologically the body's being affected by the emotions they're experiencing, and for especially someone in that field where they can utilize that technique to streamline what they're working on, how they're working on what that person is processing. Within the KST protocol, there's an entire segment on emotions. It's under what's called SEDVED. SEDVED is an acronym for STARS: emotions, dental, dehydration, valve, organ, and endocrine. And that there is an emotions chart that helps figure out the physiology of the emotions related to that. So anyone that is working with someone and any health concerns absolutely needs to be looking at the emotional components and the physiological effect on their body. And KST is a beautiful tool that fits well into that modality.
That's perfect. I know, because I study the psychophysiology, that whole mind-body connection, and I work with a lot of my clients on this stuff. Just even, I would say maybe about a third of my clients that I see often deal with some sort of like an injury or a problem in their body that's structural and very physical, but it's completely tied into their emotions and what their emotional body is experiencing. And sometimes it's great to just make the adjustment, the shift, release the pressure, the pain in that area, and the emotion comes out, and they feel better afterwards as well. But sometimes it's to address that emotion, and then the physiological body shifts and adjusts with it. I had this lady I worked with. She had an ankle problem, and she saw a physical therapist, she saw a chiropractor, and she couldn't get the ankle problem addressed. And when I was feeling her ankle, it was like she was in the runner's position. There had that flexion coming up all the time. And I sat there and I just kind of felt it, and I could feel it travel up through her front of her leg into her and everything. And I just got the clear image that she's like in this sprinter's position, like ready to run. And so I asked her, I said, do you feel like you're always racing from one thing to the next? And she's like, oh, yes, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was a manager at an office, and she was like, she prided herself on being so like, here I go. Second something happens, she's sprinting towards it to get rid of that problem. And she's like, that's what makes me a good manager. And I was just like, well, that's that mentality that you've adopted seems to be causing a neurological response down to your muscles, into your foot, to almost act as if you're ready to just sprint and take off running every single time. And the second she relaxed that mentality of needing to run all over the place, sorry, dogs. The second she relaxed out of that mentality, her ankle released. And she was able to finally let that go. It was a struggle for her, because she was like, this is what makes me a good manager. But it was that high level of stress and pressure she put upon herself that
her body.
Yep. And that's what was creating that problem. And that's why the chiropractor couldn't fix it. The physical therapist couldn't fix it, because they weren't looking at what the source of the problem was. And they were just trying to find an adjustment or rub an area. And it was really locked into her mind. And that's what was creating that problem. So I see, like I said, maybe about a third of my clients that I see deal with that kind of thing. And I work a lot with anxiety and depression through coaching with people. And it's fantastic to see them start to understand their own health and their own awareness of things when you educate them and teach them stuff. So I really feel like KST might be just a fantastic thing for, like you said, just a lay person to kind of know, because that would help them even with their anxieties and their own depression too, I imagine, because then they could start piecing things together as to what's going to help them feel better.
Yeah, and really, what I'm working at developing for the KST family and community is a formal home care class, where instead of having to spend the money to do the professional level, where a lot of that stuff you'll never do, or you may not understand it, you don't have training and understanding, you're sitting in a class going, I have no idea, I just want to check myself for vitamins. To be able to take a class in an office of a practitioner, pay $200. 4-hour class, and then be able to take that information in a usable form, a practical daily form for just the lay person to check themselves. And I've been teaching that in my class, or in my office. We don't have any current date set up for the next one. But if you do have anyone that is interested in that kind of that lower level, they're not a professional, they don't want to work on other people, that's really what this class is being designed for. If it is a professional, a massage therapist, whoever it is that wants to be able to get more information to do their job better, more accurately, then I would tell you, if you're charging money for anything, absolutely take the professional KST seminar. But otherwise, I'd really like to see these home care classes rolled out on a more practical level. Even something that you could teach out of your own office as well.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. I was just like, man, I would love to be able to teach people more of that too, because there are things like different exercise routines and techniques like qigong and stuff like that I teach a lot of people. But I imagine that if I could get the training with the KST myself, that I could help people to identify maybe even which exercises would be the ones to help correct some of their own imbalances within their body. And then whatever I've trained them in and teach them in with that, they can do their own assessments to kind of go, yes, this is the exercise I need to learn how to do today, or that I need to do today to gain the actual benefits that I want to see. Yeah, that really gets me motivated.
Does mess with the brain a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I have one of my patients. He has taken the home care class. He's taken either 3 or 4 refreshers. It's like anything, you get it, but you come back to, you usually pick up more stuff. He'll come into his regular appointment and say, hey, I need to have you check my atlas. I got to make sure you check my L5. And I got to make sure there's something else going on. And it'll usually be an emotion related to schoolwork and that kind of stuff. I'll check him. It's like ding, 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 ding. He's right on. And for him, it's like he now is no longer dependent on me to know what his life and his body is doing. I'm just a confirmation to what he knows. Absolutely. We can talk more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Is I want to empower people so that they have the abilities to work on themselves and find ways to do more for themselves. So it's it's just a big passion of mine, is that you give you feed a man a fish, or you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, right? You teach them how to fish and they eat for life. Right. And that's what giving knowledge is you teach them how to do this stuff for themselves, at least in the minor ways, right? Like the supplements, or how to, understand what's going on physiologically with their body. They have the power now that they go, oh, I understand what's happening. And I don't need anybody to tell me what's going on other than, what I already know and what my body already knows. Like you said, like my body should be the one that knows, is the professional of my body, knows, expertise wise what's happening with my body and my physiology. So not to say that you shouldn't go get tested or anything, of course. Right. But,
and it's funny, as those words came out of your mouth, my brain just went, but it doesn't replace the necessity at times for medical care.
Yeah.
I've done my same checks, and I've sent people from my office to the emergency room. Said, this is significant. This is important. This is not, let me adjust you and you spend the next week at home and you're going to heal. This is an emergency. Your body needs help. There's so many things our bodies can heal on their own. And you and I both know that. And there's also things that the body can need help with. And having some of that comfort of also knowing, hey, this is important. It's an antibiotic, medical care, check for the heart, blood pressure. There's so many things that you and I don't replace, but we can absolutely support and get people within our scopes of practice, but also making sure that the person is getting the care they need and not wasting money at the same time. It's huge. It matters a lot to the end user for any office that would use this information.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. And I mean, on that note, I had a friend of mine just recently passed away from cancer, and she studied Chinese medical massage and Chinese medicine like I did from our mentor. And though she was really big into doing everything natural as much as she possibly could, she knew that there were certain things that were completely out of the realm of possibility for her own health, going the more natural route, and that she still had to take the holistic approach. And holistic means that you take all things into account, right? And so she went and had treatment done, and that treatment was very successful at first. And then the cancer came back very aggressive later on down the road. And that's what ended up getting her before they had a chance to even know that she was sick. It was already too late. But she still lived an amazing, wonderful life. She was very happy and very peaceful when she passed. And it was just one of those things that, even as a medical practitioner who advocates for natural holistic approaches, like I still tell people, like, if you got a gunshot wound, don't come to me. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah. You're bleeding. Don't come to the chiropractor. I don't care.
Right. Exactly. So there's just different levels. We have to take all of these medicines and, working together, and for the best benefit possible for each individual as their own individual and what they're going through. So yeah, it's not none of this is a replacement for some of those other types of medicines that are more conventional. This is just something that helps bolster, support, and maybe even hopefully help curb the necessity for some of those more extreme medical interventions.
Absolutely.
So
couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure. It was fun talking with you. This has been awesome. And everybody who, if you live in the Tempe area of Arizona, Dr. Kevin Ross's office space is located, where's your address again?
I am 2405 East Southern Avenue. It's in Tempe, and it's 85212 is the zip code. I will warn you ahead of time. Right now, we're scheduling probably about 6 weeks out for new patients. At one point, we were about 2.5 months out. We're a little bit less. We love what we do, but we definitely have a waiting list. So would be honored to help anyone that feels like I might be someone that could help them. I love that. If not, we do have a referral base for other people that we refer to as well. I am always honored when people trust their life and their health with me. But at the same time, if I can get people to where they need to be, that's also part of my job as well.
All right. And I will post links in the description below and or on the side of the video. And you guys can reach out and contact Dr. Kevin Ross directly, or maybe even find a referral system where, like he said, where you can go and see somebody else that is preferably maybe trained in KST, or that you yourself trust, right? Perfect.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all for watching. And this concludes our video and our interview with Dr. Kevin Ross.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.